Hello my dear friends, welcome to my channel. I have a Kringle review for you today, and it's of a candle that came out in fall, I believe, of last year. The candle is Velo, and it looks like this. It's a really kind of pretty, like watercolor-ish picture of a bicycle. I had to look it up. Velo is like it's I think a term for like an old school bicycle way back in the day before like people called them bicycles or something. I don't know. Could probably use a rename. But at any rate, Velo. This one came out in the fall, and I made a note of it. Once I got it and I smelled it, I said to myself, this smells more like a spring candle to me. So I made a note in my notes that like it should be burned in the spring and I would review it then. And so I brought it out in the spring, maybe a month ago, and I started burning it. And I thought to myself, no, I think Kringle is right. I think this might be a fall candle rather than a spring one. So I'm gonna reserve this a little bit for fall. I think I'm gonna put it away, bring it out in the fall, see how it does. It's a tricky candle. And I'm not even sure that I like it all that much. I think it's a hard candle to brand for a particular season. There is just so much prime real estate in that fall period that I think it's going to be a tough sell to get people to burn this in the fall, but I don't think it's completely right for the spring either. There's just, and I'm not even a gourmand person, but in the fall, you just associate certain like harvest or bonfire-ish kind of candles in that period. And honestly, there aren't enough days in the fall to burn all the candles that we want to burn in the fall. So I'm not sure that this is going to find a place in most people's fall season. Let's talk about the candles. So the notes given from Kringle are top, and they're fairly descriptive notes. Top notes are leather accord, sandalwood, and lemon zest. Mid notes, rose petals, freesia, and nutmeg. I think it was the floral quality to it. It is vaguely floral, but I would say in a powdery way. There is something vaguely floral to it, which made people think that it maybe was more of a spring candle, myself included. But now that I smell it again, I mean, it's very, if the floral is there, it's very antique, faded, powdery, which could very well be fall as opposed to spring. There's nothing fresh, dewy, vibrant, growing about this floral that would indicate it needs to be in the spring. Base notes, amber, cedarwood, patchouli, and musk. And if you just saw those in a list on paper, amber, cedarwood, patchouli, musk, you would say that it's probably a fall candle. And the other thing that you would say is that it kind of sounds on paper as if it leans a little bit masculine, what with the leather, the sandalwood, the cedarwood, the patchouli, the musk, etc. And that's absolutely correct. The candle does lean masculine, but I'm actually kind of grateful that the lemon zest, it didn't come forward more than it did, because if with lemon and the bergamot, if you add those to those traditional, more masculine leaning notes, it can go generic men's cologne. And the lemon zest isn't coming through at all, period. Like there's nothing sharp or citrusy about this. There really aren't even high notes in it at all. I would say this is very much a mid-range to base kind of candle. So the lemon zest is not there, and it doesn't go generic men's cologne. It is somewhat masculine, but it's so unique and sophisticated. So I have to give Kringle an enormous amount of credit, as I try to, for uniqueness and innovation. The most dominant note in this candle is leather. It is absolutely leather. In fact, I don't know that I've ever smelled a candle that was more leathery than this particular candle. which I kind of think is fantastic. And in the marketing, I think maybe there should have been a greater attempt to invoke something that has leather in it or something like that. So leather is, oh gosh, to me, it smells like about 60 or 70% of the candle. The other part of the candle is almost vaguely incensey and so spicy. And the only spice listed here is nutmeg. Although the cedar wood and the sandalwood definitely have kind of a little bit of a, I don't even want to call it spicy, but both of those woods lean a little bit exotic or complex. And what with the patchouli and the musk are creating kind of a vaguely incensey kind of feel to it. When I burned it, whatever was floral in it lifted off. I did not get much floral from this. And as I was burning it, I thought it came across as a fairly two-dimensional candle, 2 dimensions. The dimensions were 1, leather, and 2, the way that it came across was actually as vetiver. So vetiver is a really funky, like grassy herb. It's very much an acquired taste, very similar to clary sage in that regard. But vetiver, it has like an almost medicinal sweetness in an essential oil. So when it's reduced down into an essential oil, it's almost syrupy in its sweetness. And there's this really funky herb quality to it that actually, it just to me seems like leather and vetiver, to be honest. And I think that what is coming across as vetiver is that combination of the various woods with the patchouli and the musk. It's just, yeah, I would say leather and vetiver. It could be renamed leather and vetiver. The thing about it is leather and vetiver are extremely intense. Both of those smells, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I have to say that even upon it being burned, where it kind of came to life a little bit and also softened up, those 2 qualities are, I think, too similar to each other. Not necessarily in the way that they smell, but in the vibe and in the strength and intensity that they invoke. So what you really need for leather, especially the most dominant leather, is that you need to cut it with something that is less austere. Maybe something a little sweet. So I'd love to see a leather candle that's mixed with like a vanilla or a tonka bean, a creaminess, a cashmere. All of those would, I think, be the right direction to soften the leather down and provide some sweetness. The sweetness that's being added to the leather here is, it's an assertive, I would say it's an aggressive, almost medicinal kind of sweetness, which itself needs to be softened with something potentially creamy. So unfortunately, there's nothing in this candle that is checking or balancing it in the way that it needs to be balanced. And on top of it, it just kind of comes across as a 2-note, as a leather and a very intense, like, herbal musk. Yeah, which makes the fragrance a little thinner than it should be, frankly. So this topped out at about a 7.5. It was a fairly good throw, but when I blew it out, it quickly dissipated from the room. So in that sense, thin and intense. I don't think it could be a whole lot more strong without really being overwhelming. And there were several times I burned this and I thought to myself, I just really don't know that I love this fragrance. But it is unique. And I love the leather note. I really do. I think they need to do more with leather going forward. And like I said, I think maybe a creamy combination would be really winning in terms of a balance there. But leather and vetiver are two very, very niche fragrances. And I don't know that they're mass appeal. So I have a hard time recommending this candle because I'm not exactly sure who the demographic and the audience is for this candle. I do think there will be men especially who will really appreciate this. And I tend to have a more masculine aesthetic, so I do appreciate it for that reason. I just don't think that it's very pleasant or pleasing. It smells like a cowboy. Which made me think, actually, I think they're, at the very least, even if they don't change the fragrance, the marketing ploy needs to be doing a lot more work here. Sell this candle. What is this candle? Like, we don't know what season it's supposed to be in. What should this be invoking? And I'm not sure that, if they could nail that a little bit better, I think that would really help this candle not only find an audience, but also go a long way toward explaining the fragrance itself. So I did think to myself, I thought, well, maybe this could be called Montana or Arkansas or Oklahoma or something like that. And then I started thinking, they should do 50 states. And what if Kringle just did released a few states per year, 3 states? They might even be able to release them at July 4th period when nothing's happening because it's right before fall season, What if they just did 3 states a year, I mean, it's great. You've got so much creative potential for years and years and years doing that, right? And people love destination collections. I just really think Kringle could do an amazing job creating a candle for each given state that's nuanced, that's special. Yeah. This candle probably needs to be a place. It needs to be a space rather than a season because I don't think it fits for seasons. And for me personally, I think it may need to go back to the drawing board and just get a little something else. This came out at the same time as Sanctuary, and actually I think that they're similar scents. I think the Sanctuary candle has patchouli in it. I think it has vetiver in it. It's also very sweet, etc. But Sanctuary was successful. Sanctuary was lightning in a bottle. This is much more austere. It's less complex, much more leather. And it definitely has a point of view, but I think it may be a little unfinished and it's not quite successful. A little bit of a tweak. I think you've got to get your sweetness some other place than from powdery florals and patchouli, which is lending it that vetiver-like quality. Patchouli combined with rose, I mean, that's already fairly intense. That is a point of view that also needs to be toned down. So you can't expect that to be contrasting well with leather and selling either one of them. So I would say the fragrance needs probably some tweaking, but it's unique. And the marketing just needs a new market for sure. And I think probably a destination, a place would be the way to go. For those of you who have Mick Kittredge on speed dial, who are in with the company, tell them about the 50 states. I would love that. I just think they would do so fantastic with it. Vermont, New Hampshire, Oh, I would love that. This candle is available now. It's the soy formula. It burns great. Soy formula. It's available in the small and the medium. It's got the wax melts. It's got the daylight. And it's also available in a 3-wick soy blend, which is really cute. And I do like the idea of a 3-wick. I can't recommend the soy blends. I just don't like the way that they burn. They are more sooty and problematic than the paraffin for Kringle. This may randomly be one that burns okay, but just as a general rule, I find it hard to recommend the soy blend, and I think they're trying to phase them out. But I will link all of that down below. You can get it at Kringle, and I think it's more of a fall candle than a spring candle. So I think Kringle was correct bringing it out in the fall season, but I think that going forward, it's not gonna find its place in the fall season. If for no other reason that there's just too much else to burn in the fall that makes a great deal more sense. That's what I've got for you. I'll see you in the next one.